The cargo ship drifted through the docking tunnel like a tired whale coming home. Inside, Beck Walsh checked her supply manifest one more time, making sure everything matched. She had been hauling freight across the galaxy for 15 years now, and the routine never changed much. Dock, unload, reload, undock, repeat. Today's stop was Crimson Gate Station, and today's problem was the Dravix. Everyone feared the Dravix. They stood 12 feet tall, covered in scales that could stop bullets and breathed acid when angry. They ran this sector of space like ancient kings, and other species bowed their heads when Dravix walked by. Beck had seen grown aliens literally shake in terror when a Dravix entered a room. She never understood why people got so worked up about them. The docking clamps locked into place with a metallic thud. Beck stood up from her pilot chair and stretched. Her navigator, a small furry alien named Pip, was already hiding under his console. Pip looked like an oversized rabbit with 6 legs and huge eyes that took up half his face. Right now, those eyes were wider than usual. Customs inspection, Pip squeaked. It will be a Dravix. It is always a Dravix here. We should have gone to the other station. The one without Dravix. We've been through this, Beck said, pulling her lunch from the cold storage unit. That station charges triple the docking fees. We're not made of money. Money does not matter when you are dead, Pip muttered, but he stayed under his console. Beck unwrapped her lunch. It was a thick cut of beef, cooked rare the way she liked it. Blood pooled at the bottom of the container, and the meat was still pink in the middle. She grabbed a fork and sat back in her chair, cutting off a piece. The intercom buzzed before she could take a bite. Merchant vessel steady reach, prepare for customs inspection. Officer boarding in 2 minutes. Beck pressed the intercom button. Copy that. Airlock is open. She took a bite of her steak. It was good, still warm from the heating unit. The blood mixed with the meat, creating that perfect taste she had been craving all week. She was on her 3rd bite when the inner airlock door opened. The Dravix that entered had to duck to fit through the doorway. His scales were deep red, almost black, and his eyes were golden with vertical pupils. He wore the gray uniform of station security, though it looked more like armor plating. When he breathed, Beck could see small wisps of steam coming from his nostrils. His name tag read Scarl. I am Officer Scarl, the Dravix announced, his voice like rocks grinding together. I will inspect your cargo and verify your documentation. Beck nodded, still chewing. She swallowed and gestured to the terminal. Manifest is loaded. Cargo bay access is through that door. Everything should be in order. Scarl stood very still. His nostrils flared. His head turned slowly toward Beck, and his pupils narrowed to thin slits. That smell. Blood. Under his console, Pip made a strangled sound. Beck looked down at her lunch, then back at Scarl. Yeah, it's my steak. You want some? I've got extra in cold storage. Scarl's tail swished behind him. Every muscle in his body had gone tense. He took a step forward, his claws clicking on the metal floor. You are bleeding. What? No. Beck held up the container. It's lunch, just beef. From Earth cows. The Dravix moved closer, and Beck could see his 3rd eyelid starting to close. She had read about this. When Dravix smelled blood, their predator instincts kicked in. They expected fear, submission, running. It was hardwired into their biology. Prey bled, prey ran, predators chased. That was how nature worked in their world. Beck cut another piece of steak. Relax, it's only my lunch. She put the meat in her mouth and chewed slowly. The blood dripped down her fork. She made no move to run, no sign of fear, no submission posture. She just sat there, eating her bloody meat while maintaining eye contact with a 12-foot predator dragon. Scarl's confusion was visible. His head tilted to one side. His tail stopped moving. You eat blood? Well, I eat meat that has blood in it, Beck said. Tastes better this way. Cooked all the way through gets dry. You are prey species, Scarl said slowly, like he was working through a difficult puzzle. Small, no scales, no claws, soft skin. Prey species do not eat blood. Prey species fear blood, Beck laughed. Who told you humans were prey? She stood up, still holding her lunch, and walked past Scarl to the cargo bay door. She had to walk within arm's reach of him, well within his striking distance. She did not flinch, did not hurry, did not show any sign of concern. She just walked past like he was a piece of furniture. Cargo bay is through here, she said, pressing the access button. 6 containers of medical supplies, 4 containers of preserved food, and 2 containers of mining equipment, all declared on the manifest. Scarl followed her, but his movements were uncertain now. Beck could tell he was off balance. She had broken some fundamental rule of his universe, and he did not know how to process it. The inspection took 20 minutes. Scarl checked every container, scanned every seal, and verified every item against the manifest. Beck finished her lunch while he worked, licking the blood from her fingers when she was done. Every time Scarl glanced at her, his expression showed more confusion. Finally, he finished. He stood in the cargo bay doorway, blocking most of the light, and stared at Beck. "Everything is in order," he said. "You are cleared for trade. But I have questions." "About my cargo?" Beck asked. "About humans." Scarl's tail swished again. "You do not act like prey. You do not smell like prey. You eat blood like predator, but you have no weapons. No claws, no fangs, no armor, no venom. How did your species survive?" Beck smiled, showing her teeth. On Earth, that meant friendliness. She wondered what it looked like to a Dravix. "That's a long story. I have time," Scarl said. "I wish to understand." Pip finally emerged from under his console, looked at both of them, and made a sound like a dying whistle. "This is not normal. This is not how species interact." "Beck, why are you not afraid?" Beck shrugged. "Should I be?" Scarl's eyes were fixed on her. "Yes, all prey should fear Dravix." "Well," Beck said, "maybe I'm not prey." The words hung in the air between them, and Beck could see something change in Scarl's expression. It was not anger or threat. It was something else, something like recognition. Outside the ship, Crimson Gate Station continued its endless rotation. Thousands of species moved through its corridors, all following the unwritten rules of predator and prey. But on the steady reach, those rules had just been questioned for the first time, and Beck Walsh had no idea how much that simple moment would change everything. 3 days after leaving Crimson Gate Station, Beck received a job offer that paid triple her usual rate. The catch was simple: transport 5 live Dravix warbeasts to a military outpost on the edge of their territory. Most haulers refused these jobs. Warbeasts were unpredictable, dangerous, and killed their handlers regularly. But triple rate meant Beck could take a month off after this run, maybe visit Earth for the first time in 2 years. She accepted the job. Pip had a small breakdown. "Warbeasts," Pip said, his 6 legs trembling. "Warbeasts are what Dravix use to hunt other Dravix. They are living weapons. They are death with teeth." "They're animals," Beck said, reading through the transport requirements. "Big animals, sure, but still just animals. We'll keep them sedated and secured. Easy money." "Easy death," Pip corrected. The pickup point was a Dravix military breeding facility on a moon that looked like a scar on space. Everything was red rock and black metal. When Beck landed, she found Scarl waiting on the landing pad. He wore military armor now instead of his customs uniform, and he carried a plasma rifle that looked like it could punch through a starship hull. "Officer Scarl," Beck said, walking down the cargo ramp. "Didn't expect to see you again so soon." "I requested assignment to this transport," Scarl said. "Command was curious about humans after I filed my report. They want observation of your species under stress conditions. So I'm a test subject?" "You are a puzzle," Scarl replied. "I wish to understand the answer." The warbeasts were kept in reinforced containment units that had to be loaded by crane. Each unit was the size of a small room, and Beck could hear things moving inside them. Scratching sounds, low growls, the occasional impact of something heavy hitting metal. "They are sedated," a Dravix handler explained, his scales bearing multiple scars. "But sedation only makes them slow. It does not make them safe. Do not open the containment units. Do not attempt to feed them. Do not make loud noises near them. If a unit is breached, evacuate immediately and seal the cargo bay." "Got it," Beck said. "Don't poke the murder lizards." The handler stared at her. "This is not humor situation. Warbeasts have killed 3 handlers this month. Show respect for danger." Beck nodded, keeping her expression neutral. The handler did not look convinced, but he helped load all 5 units onto the steady reach anyway. Each containment unit was secured with maglocks and safety restraints. The cargo bay looked like a military prison when they finished. The first 2 days of transport went fine. Beck kept the cargo bay sealed and monitored the life support systems every hour. The warbeasts remained quiet, probably still drowsy from sedation. Pip stayed as far from the cargo bay as possible, which meant he practically lived in the navigation console. Scarl spent most of his time watching Beck. He followed her through her daily routine, asking questions about human history, human biology, human behavior. Beck answered what she could, though some questions were strange. "Do humans feel fear?" Scarl asked on the second day. "Of course we do," Beck said. "Fear keeps you alive." "But you showed no fear when I entered your ship, when I smelled blood and moved toward you." Beck thought about that. "I guess I didn't see a reason to be afraid. You were doing your job. I was eating lunch. Nothing threatening about that. All prey species show fear when predators approach. It is biological response, automatic." "Maybe we got used to predators," Beck said. "Earth has lots of them. Had lots of them anyway. We dealt with them." "How?" Scarl leaned forward. "How does prey species deal with predators?" Beck was about to answer when the alarm sounded. Red lights flooded the corridor and the ship's computer announced in a calm voice. "Warning. Cargo bay containment breach. Warning. Containment breach." Pip made a sound like air escaping from a balloon and immediately sealed himself in the navigation room. Scarl grabbed his plasma rifle and moved toward the cargo bay. Beck followed him. "Stay back," Scarl ordered. "This is military situation." "It's my ship," Beck replied. They reached the cargo bay door. Through the small window, Beck could see one containment unit had torn open. The maglocks were still attached, but the metal walls of the unit were bent outward, peeled apart like paper. Something large and dark moved inside the cargo bay. Scarl checked his rifle. "I will attempt to sedate it again. If that fails, I will kill it. Dravik's military will understand the loss." "Wait," Beck said. She pressed her face to the window. The war beast was massive, maybe 15 feet long, with 4 legs and a tail that ended in bony spikes. Its scales were black with red patterns, and its mouth had rows of teeth designed for tearing. But something was wrong with how it moved. "It's limping," Beck said. "Left rear leg. See?" Scarl looked. "Yes, possibly injured during loading. Injury plus sedation wearing off equals aggression." "Or pain," Beck said. "Injured animals get aggressive because they're hurting." "Do not open that door," Scarl said firmly. "Procedure is clear. We seal the bay, vent the atmosphere, and salvage what we can." Beck studied the war beast through the window. It was pacing now, favoring that left leg, occasionally slamming its tail against the walls. She had seen that behavior before, back on Earth, back when she worked at animal rehabilitation centers before she became a pilot. "It's scared," Beck said. "And hurt. Bad combination. It is dangerous. That is only relevant fact." Beck made a decision she knew was probably stupid. She entered her security code into the door panel. Scarl grabbed her arm. "Do not. It's dying," Beck said, pulling free. "That leg injury looks infected. It's in pain, probably confused from the sedation, and it's getting worse. If we leave it, it will trash my cargo bay and die anyway. Let me try something." "Try what?" "You are unarmed. You have no armor. You have no training." Beck smiled. "I have experience." Before Scarl could stop her, she opened the door. The war beast's head snapped toward the sound. Its eyes were yellow with vertical pupils, just like Scarl's, but larger. It opened its mouth and made a sound like thunder mixed with nails on metal. Saliva dripped from its fangs. Beck walked into the cargo bay. Slowly, calmly, no sudden movements. "Beck, no." Pip's voice came through the intercom. "This is bad idea. This is worst idea. This is idea that ends with death." The war beast charged. 15 feet of muscle and teeth and claws rushing forward at speeds that should not be possible for something so large. Scarl raised his rifle, but Beck held up her hand. "Don't shoot." She stood still. The war beast came within 10 feet, then 5 feet, then stopped. It lowered its head, sniffed, circled around her. Beck kept her breathing steady, her posture relaxed. She had seen this dance before with injured animals. They wanted to know if you were a threat. After a long moment, the war beast sat down. It was still watching her, still ready to attack, but it sat. Beck slowly knelt down. She was now at eye level with the creature. "Hey there," she said softly. "That leg hurts, doesn't it?" The war beast's tail swished once. "I know, let me look at it. I won't hurt you, promise." She moved slowly around to the injured leg. The wound was obvious now, a deep gash that had gotten infected. The flesh around it was swollen and discolored. No wonder the creature was aggressive. Beck pulled her multi-tool from her belt. The war beast tensed, but she kept talking in that same soft voice. "Just need to clean this. It'll sting, but you'll feel better after. Trust me." She had medical supplies in her cargo kit. She always carried them for emergencies. She cleaned the wound as gently as possible while the war beast watched her. Then she applied antibacterial gel and wrapped it with sterile bandaging. The whole time, Scarl stood in the doorway, rifle ready, completely frozen in shock. When Beck finished, she patted the war beast's shoulder. "There, better?" The creature made a low, rumbling sound. Not aggressive. Almost like a purr. Beck went to the cold storage unit in the cargo bay and pulled out raw meat she kept for her own meals. She tossed a large piece to the war beast. It caught the meat in midair and swallowed it whole. Then it looked at her expectantly. "Greedy," Beck said, but she gave it another piece. By the time she left the cargo bay, the war beast had curled up near its broken containment unit and was sleeping. Its breathing was steady and calm. Beck sealed the door. Scarl was still standing there, his rifle lowered, his expression showing something she had never seen on a Dravik's face before. Complete bewilderment. "How?" Scarl said. "How did you do that?" Beck shrugged. "Animals are animals. You just need to understand them. That is war beast. Bred for killing. Trained for combat. Designed to feel no mercy. It's a living thing in pain," Beck replied. "That's all that mattered." Scarl was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Tell me about Earth predators." So Beck told him. She told him about wolves that humans turned into dogs. About wildcats that became house pets. About bears and lions and tigers that killed thousands of humans and how humans hunted them anyway. She told him about megafauna that once ruled Earth until humans with simple spears decided they wanted those animals gone. Scarl listened to every word, and his expression never changed back from bewilderment. "Humans domesticated predators," he said finally. "Turned killers into companions. Pretty much. What does that make humans?" Beck thought about that question. Adaptable, I guess. But she could see in Scarl's eyes that he was thinking something else. Something that scared him more than the war beast ever could. The frontier station called Last Hope lived up to its name. Everything about it screamed desperation, from the flickering lights to the rust stains on every surface. It orbited a dying star that gave everything a sickly orange tint. Beck needed to resupply here because her usual stations were 3 days further, and the war beasts needed fresh water that her recycling system could not provide forever. She docked at Port 7, which looked like someone had welded it together from spare parts and prayers. Pip refused to leave the ship this time. After watching Beck walk into a cargo bay with a war beast, he had decided that his captain clearly had a death wish, and he wanted no part of whatever happened next. "I will watch the ship," Pip said, already hiding under his console. "You go into the terrible station full of terrible things. I will be here safe, not dying." Beck grabbed her credit chip and headed down the docking ramp. Scarl followed her. He had not left her side since the war beast incident, taking his observation mission very seriously. Beck did not mind the company, even if he kept asking strange questions about human behavior. Last Hope's main corridor was crowded with the usual mix of species. Mostly prey types, small traders, refugees, workers trying to make enough credits to get somewhere better. They moved along the walls, heads down, trying not to draw attention. In the center of the corridor, 3 Raptechs strutted like they owned the place. Raptechs looked like someone crossed a velociraptor with a nightmare. 7 feet tall, covered in feathers and scales, with claws on their hands and feet that could gut prey in seconds. They moved in packs and hunted anything weaker than themselves. Most stations banned them. Frontier stations could not afford to be picky. Beck walked down the center of the corridor toward the supply depot. The Raptechs noticed her immediately. One of them, with bright red feathers on his head, stepped into her path. "Prey," the Raptech said. His voice was high-pitched and sharp. "Small prey, pay toll. 20 credits, Beck stopped. "There's no toll posted at the docking bay. New toll. Raptech's toll. Pay or we take." Behind her, Scarl made a low growling sound. The Raptechs glanced at him, then back at Beck. "Dravik's pet? That is interesting. But Dravik's not stopping us. This is our territory." Beck noticed the other 2 Raptechs had moved to flank them. Classic pack hunting behavior. She had seen documentaries about this. Raptechs used intimidation first, then escalated to violence if prey resisted. Host species paid the toll because fighting meant injury or death. "I'm not paying," Beck said. The red-feathered Raptex tilted his head. "Then we take. Starting with your credits. Then your cargo. Then maybe we keep Dravik's as trophy. We never killed Dravik's before." Scarl's hand moved toward his plasma rifle, but Beck touched his arm. "Wait, She looked at the red-feathered Raptex and smiled, just like she had smiled at Scarl that first day, showing her small human teeth, making direct eye contact, not backing down. You really don't want to do this, Beck said calmly. The Raptex made a sound like laughter. Small prey telling me what I want? Funny, stupid, but funny. Last chance. Pay or bleed. Beck, Scarl said quietly. These are pack hunters, dangerous. I can kill them, but station security will arrest us. Better to pay and move on. No, Beck said. She had not broken eye contact with the Raptex. I'm tired of predators thinking they run everything. The red-feathered Raptex's pupils narrowed. What did Prey say? Beck took a step forward. The Raptex's body language showed confusion, just like Scarl's head. Prey did not move toward predators. That was the fundamental rule. But Beck kept walking forward until she was within striking distance. I said no, Beck repeated. Now move. The Raptex struck. His clawed hand came up fast, aiming for Beck's throat. It was a killing blow, meant to end the fight before it started. Beck had been expecting it. She shifted her weight, letting the claw pass inches from her neck. Her hand grabbed the Raptex's wrist, using his own momentum against him. She twisted, stepping inside his reach, and brought her elbow up into his jaw. The impact made a sound like a rock hitting metal. The Raptex staggered back, surprised. Beck did not give him time to recover. She kicked his knee and something crunched. The Raptex went down, clutching his leg, making high-pitched sounds of pain. The other two Raptex attacked together. Beck was ready for that too. She ducked under the first one's claws, grabbed a loose pipe from the wall and swung it into the second one's ribs. He went down gasping. The first one tried to tackle her, but Beck sidestepped and brought the pipe down on the back of his skull. Not hard enough to kill, but hard enough to stop him. The whole fight lasted maybe 10 seconds. Beck dropped the pipe and looked down at the three Raptex. The red-feathered one was still conscious, still staring at her with wide eyes. Here's something you should know, Beck said, breathing a little hard but still calm. On Earth, humans aren't prey. We're the species that hunted everything else. We tracked animals for days until they collapsed from exhaustion. We threw rocks and spears until nothing could run fast enough or fight hard enough. We turned wolves into pets and made predators afraid of us. She crouched down next to the red-feathered Raptex. You think you're scary because you have claws? Humans conquered Earth without claws, without fangs, without armor or venom or any natural weapons. We did it with brains and tools and refusing to quit. So here's my toll, leave this station. Find somewhere else to play predator, because I'm going to be coming through here regularly and next time I won't be this nice. The Raptex tried to say something, but his jaw was swelling shut. Beck stood up and walked past him toward the supply depot. The corridor was silent. Every species had stopped to watch. Prey species stared with their mouths open. A few predator species had backed away from Beck, giving her space. Scarl caught up to her. He looked at the three Raptex, then at Beck. You learned to fight. Military training. Marines, Beck said. 6 years, 2 tours. Retired as a sergeant. Figured hauling cargo was safer than combat zones. She laughed. Guess I was wrong. You broke his leg. Fractured the second one's ribs. Gave the third one concussion. They'll heal. I could have done worse. Scarl was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that made Beck stop walking. Prey species do not fight back. It is not in their nature. They run, they hide, they submit. It is biological imperative. Even species with defensive capabilities do not attack. They endure, but you attacked. You saw predators and decided to break them. They were bullies, Beck said. I don't like bullies. No, Scarl's tail swished. It is more than that. You did not fight because you had to. You fought because they challenged you, because they thought you were weak. You punished them for that assumption. That is not prey behavior. That is not even predator behavior. That is apex predator behavior. That is what the strongest species does when weaker species forget their place. Beck thought about that. She had never really considered herself an apex predator. She was just a cargo hauler who knew how to handle herself. But she remembered Earth's history. Humans had spread across every continent, adapted to every environment, and eliminated any species that threatened them. Not because they had to, but because they could. Maybe, she said finally. They reached the supply depot without any more incidents. The owner, a spider-like alien with too many eyes, processed Beck's order quickly and gave her a 20% discount without being asked. Word traveled fast on stations like this. When they got back to the ship, Pip was watching the security feed. I saw, he said quietly. I saw what you did. Beck, are all humans like you? Like what? Dangerous. Humans are dangerous. Beck loaded the supplies into the cargo hold. One of the war beasts was awake and watching her through the broken containment unit. She tossed it some raw meat, and it caught the food gently, almost carefully, like it was being polite. I guess we can be, Beck said. When we need to be. That night, while the ship traveled through empty space, Beck found Scarl in the observation deck. He was staring out at the stars with an expression she could not read. Question, Scarl said without turning around. If humans are apex predators, why do you haul cargo? Why not conquer? Your species could take this sector easily based on what I have observed. Beck stood next to him. Because we don't want to. Conquering is exhausting. We tried it on Earth, kingdoms and empires and wars everywhere. Eventually, we figured out that trading and cooperating was easier. More profitable too. But you could. Yeah, we could. But just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Scarl turned to look at her. Draviks do not understand that concept. We conquered because we could. We rule because we are strongest. That is the way of predators. But humans conquered their world, became strongest, and then decided to do something else. That is terrifying. Species that choose restraint are more dangerous than species that cannot. Beck had not thought about it that way. Huh, I guess that makes sense. I must report this to Dravik's command, Scarl said. They must know what humans truly are. Not prey, not predators. Something else. Something that does not fit into the natural order. What will they do? Scarl's expression was grim. I do not know, but everything is about to change. Beck looked out at the stars and wondered if she had just started something much bigger than a simple cargo run. Behind them in the cargo bay, 5 war beasts slept peacefully, and that alone told the whole story. The distress signal came through while Beck was replacing a fuel line in the engine room. It was the old kind of signal, the universal emergency broadcast that every ship was required to answer. Pip picked it up first, his ears going flat against his head. Distress call, Pip announced through the intercom. 3 hours away. Beck, maybe we should not answer. Maybe someone else will answer. Beck wiped grease from her hands. How long has it been broadcasting? A pause. 17 hours, that meant no one else was coming. Either the ship was too far off regular routes or other vessels had decided the risk was too high. Beck climbed out of the engine room and headed for the bridge. Scarl was already there, studying the signal information. Cargo vessel, Scarl said. Registry shows it belongs to the Yilian Collective. Small trading company, crew of 12. Signal originated 17 hours ago and has been repeating since. Any details on what happened? Beck asked. No, just emergency code. Could be engine failure, could be pirates, could be anything. Beck checked their course. 3 hours off route, but they had time. The war beasts were secure, supplies were good, and schedule was flexible. We're going. Bad idea, Pip squeaked from his console. Very bad idea. Ships that send distress signals are usually full of things that cause distress. It's space law, Beck said. You answer distress calls. That's the rule. Scarl's tail swished. I agree with the small one. Something feels wrong about this. 17 hours is long time. If crew was alive, they would send updates. Silence after distress call usually means everyone is dead. Then we'll recover the bodies and the ship's log. Families deserve to know what happened. They changed course. 3 hours later, they found the Yilian vessel drifting in empty space. It was a medium-sized cargo hauler, bigger than the Steady Reach but older with patchwork repairs visible on the hull. No lights, no life signs on scans. Just a dead ship floating in the dark. Beck suited up in her maintenance gear. Scarl put on full Dravik's combat armor and carried 2 plasma rifles. Pip locked himself in the navigation room and refused to come out. I will monitor communications, Pip said firmly. From here, where it is safe. You go into the death ship. I will remember you fondly. The airlock connection took 5 minutes to secure. Beck and Scarl crossed through the tunnel into the Yilian vessel. The moment they entered, Beck knew something was very wrong. The walls had scratch marks, deep gouges in the metal, running in long parallel lines, some kind of claws. The corridor was dark except for emergency lights, and everything was too quiet. Ships always had sounds, air recyclers, power generators, equipment humming. This ship was silent. No crew, Scarl said quietly. His weapon was raised, scanning for threats. No bodies either. That is unusual. They moved deeper into the ship. The cargo bay door was sealed, but the control panel was smashed. Something had hit it hard enough to crack the metal casing. Beck pulled the manual release and the door opened slowly. The cargo bay was a nightmare. Containers were ripped open, their contents scattered everywhere. The walls had more scratch marks, and something dark was sprayed across the floor. Beck recognized the pattern. Blood. Lots of it. Different colors, too, meaning multiple species. Survivors might be in the sealed sections, Beck said, checking her suit's scanner. Life support is still running in the crew quarters and bridge. They headed toward the crew quarters. The corridor leading there had more signs of violence. Broken equipment, emergency lockers torn open, and those claw marks everywhere. Whatever attacked this ship had been thorough. The crew quarters were sealed with emergency locks. Beck entered. The override code, standard for rescue operations, and the door opened. Inside, they found 5 crew members huddled in the back corner. 4 were Yilion, small gray-skinned aliens with large black eyes. The 5th was a Kelthon, a reptilian species built like armored tanks. All 5 were alive but terrified. When they saw Beck and Scarl, they scrambled backward, making sounds of fear. "We're here to help," Beck said, keeping her voice calm. "I'm Captain Walsh from the Steady Reach. This is Officer Scarl. We received your distress signal." The Kelthon spoke first, his voice shaking. "You should not have come. You need to leave. Now, while you still can." "What happened here?" Scarl asked. "Hive," the Kelthon said. "We transported cargo from a derelict station. Did not scan properly. Cargo contained hive eggs. They hatched during transit. They killed everyone else. 7 crew members gone. We sealed ourselves in here 12 hours ago. They are still out there. Waiting." Beck felt cold. Hive were legendary nightmares. Insect-like creatures that bred fast, killed efficiently, and never stopped hunting. They were nearly impossible to kill because they worked as a collective mind. Kill one and 10 more would come. Most planets had standing orders to burn any ship infected with hive and ask questions never. "How many?" Beck asked. "Started with 3 eggs. Now?" The Kelthon shook his head. "Could be 30, could be more. They took the bodies. Hive used bodies as incubators for more eggs." Scarl checked his rifle. "We need to leave. Immediately. Seal this ship and broadcast quarantine warning." "We cannot leave them," Beck said, gesturing to the survivors. "Beck, we have war beasts on our ship. If Hive get onto Steady Reach, disaster becomes catastrophe. We cannot risk it." Beck knew he was right. The smart thing was to seal this ship, take off, and let military handle it. But looking at the 5 survivors, she could not do that. They had been trapped here for 12 hours, listening to their friends die. They deserved better. "I'll get them out," Beck said. "You head back to the Steady Reach. Be ready to undock fast if things go wrong. You cannot fight Hive alone. I'm not fighting them. I'm outsmarting them." Beck turned to the survivors. "How far to the bridge from here?" 2 corridors, the Kelthon said. "But they are between us and the bridge. They are always between us and anywhere we want to go. They are smart. They wait. They wait because they know you're trapped," Beck said. "But I'm not trapped. I'm just visiting." She checked the ship's layout on her wrist computer. The Yilian vessel was old but standard design. That meant ventilation shafts, maintenance tunnels, and emergency routes. Multiple ways to move through the ship without using main corridors. "Maintenance shaft," Beck said, pointing at a panel in the ceiling. "Runs parallel to the main corridor. Comes out near the bridge. We use that." "Shafts are small," the Kelthon said. "Hive are small too. They can follow. Then we make sure they don't want to follow." Beck opened the emergency locker and pulled out the fire suppression equipment. Every ship carried chemical fire suppressant, usually foam-based. It was designed to smother fires by removing oxygen. It would also clog up insect breathing holes. She also grabbed every compressed air canister she could find. The ship's life support system, the emergency oxygen tanks, anything that held pressure. Then she found the emergency flares, the kind that burned bright and hot for evacuations. Scarl watched her gather equipment. "What is your plan?" "Hive are insects, right? Insects have weaknesses. They hate extreme cold, extreme heat, and they need air just like us. I'm going to make this ship somewhere they don't want to be. Beck opened the maintenance shaft. It was narrow, barely wide enough for her to crawl through. She went first, dragging a bag of equipment. The survivors followed, with Scarl bringing up the rear, his bulk barely fitting in the shaft. They moved slowly through the darkness. Beck could hear sounds below them in the corridors. Clicking noises, scraping. The hive knew they were moving, but the creatures could not reach them in the shaft. At the first junction, Beck stopped. She opened a compressed air canister and wedged a flare inside it. When the flare burned hot enough, it would rupture the canister and spray freezing air everywhere. She set the timer and left it. They kept moving. At every junction, Beck left another trap. Fire suppression foam rigged to spray into corridors. Emergency oxygen tanks set to rupture and flood sections with pure oxygen, which would make her flares burn impossibly hot. She was turning the ship into a death trap. They reached the bridge access shaft. Beck opened it carefully and dropped down into the bridge. Empty. The control systems were still working. She immediately started the ship's emergency protocols. "What are you doing?" Scarl asked. "Evacuating the ship. The fun way." Beck activated the emergency vent system. This was designed for toxic gas leaks or fire. It would open external vents and pump all the air out of the ship in under 5 minutes. But first, she sealed the bridge and the maintenance shaft behind them. Then she triggered her traps. Throughout the ship, canisters exploded. Flares ignited. Fire suppression foam-filled corridors. The temperature in some sections dropped to freezing while others became ovens. And then the air started disappearing. Through the bridge windows, Beck could see vapor venting from the hull. Inside the ship, hive creatures would be suffocating, freezing, burning, or drowning in foam. She had turned their hunting ground into chaos. 5 minutes later, the ship was mostly vacuum. Any hive that survived the traps would be dead from decompression. "Shuttle bay should still have emergency power," Beck said. "We get to a shuttle, get out, and I'll remote pilot it to the steady reach. Everyone gets out alive." They moved fast through the dead ship. In the corridors, they saw hive bodies, black insect creatures the size of dogs, with too many legs and mandibles designed for cutting. All dead. Beck's traps had worked. They reached the shuttle bay and got everyone aboard the emergency shuttle. It was cramped, barely big enough for 7 people, but it had air and power. Beck launched it and brought it alongside the steady reach. Scarl helped the survivors cross into the cargo bay. Beck was the last one across. As she stepped onto her ship, she felt something sharp scrape across her suit. A claw mark. One of the hive must have gotten into the shuttle, hiding. She killed it with a cargo hook, but not before it tore through her suit's arm section. Blood dripped onto the cargo bay floor. Just a small cut, nothing serious. Beck sealed her suit and checked that everyone was safe. "We need medical attention for some of them," she said. "Nearest station with proper facilities is 8 hours. I'll set course now." She headed for the bridge, pulling off her helmet. Pip looked relieved to see her. "You are alive. This is good. I thought you would be dead." I prepared a nice memorial speech. "Save it for someone who needs it," Beck said, settling into her chair. She programmed the course and engaged engines. The Yillian vessel fell away behind them, a quarantine beacon now broadcasting from its hull. Beck pulled a ration bar from storage and ate while she flew. Her arm had stopped bleeding, just a scratch, really. Scarl watched her eat with that same confused expression he always had around her. "You walked into a ship full of hive," Scarl said, "species that even Dravik's military avoid unless necessary. You fought them without weapons, using only ship's equipment. You rescued 5 people who should be dead, and now you eat." Beck shrugged. "It's lunchtime. I'm hungry. Your arm is wounded. I can smell the blood. You do not react. It's just a scratch. I've had worse. There was this one time in the Marines when—" "No," Scarl interrupted her. "This is the thing I do not understand about humans. You are comfortable with blood. Your blood, other blood, any blood. Predators smell blood and go into killing frenzy. Prey smell blood and panic. But humans smell blood and make lunch plans. That is not normal. That is not natural." Beck thought about that while she chewed her ration bar. She had never really considered it strange. Humans had been hunting and butchering meat for thousands of years. They had been in wars, had been injured, had seen blood so often that it became just another thing. Not scary, not exciting, just part of life. I guess we got used to it, she said finally. Scarl made a low sound. Species that are comfortable with blood are species that have spilled much blood. Humans are not prey. Humans are not predators. Humans are something that scares both. In the cargo bay, one of the war beasts had smelled Beck's blood. It was pressed against the broken containment unit, sniffing the air, but it made no aggressive moves. Just curious, like it recognized her as something equal. Beck finished her ration bar and flew her ship toward the station. Behind them, the dead Yillian vessel drifted in space, full of dead hive creatures that had learned too late that humans did not play by the galaxy's rules. And somewhere in Dravik space, officers were reading Scarl's reports and realizing the same thing. 2 weeks after the hive incident, Beck received a message that was not a request. The Dravik's High Command wanted to meet her. Not wanted. Required. The message included coordinates, a security clearance code, and a very polite threat that refusing would result in her hauling license being permanently revoked across all Dravik space. "This is bad," Pip said, reading the message for the 5th time. "This is very bad. They are going to dissect you. They are going to study you. They are going to put you in a cage and poke you with sticks. They just want to talk," Beck said, though she was not entirely convinced herself. Nobody summons people to Scorched Peak just to talk. Scorched Peak is the Dravik's homeworld, the place where they rule from, the place where they decide which species live and which die. Scarl had been quiet since the message arrived. He stood at the observation window staring at nothing. Finally, he spoke. "I wrote reports, detailed reports, about your behavior, your capabilities, your species." Command became interested, then concerned. Now they want answers directly from human source. "So this is your fault," Pip accused. "This is reality. Humans cannot hide what they are. Better to address it openly than have Dravik's command make assumptions." Beck checked the coordinates. Scorched Peak was 3 days away at full speed. She could refuse, but that would only make things worse. Better to face whatever was coming head on. That was the human way, after all. "Set course," she told Pip. "Let's get this over with." The journey to Scorched Peak felt longer than 3 days. Beck spent the time reading everything she could about Dravik's culture. They were an empire species, had been conquering worlds for 5,000 years. They respected strength, despised weakness, and maintained rigid hierarchies based on combat ability. Their homeworld was volcanic, covered in mountains that belched fire and ash. They had evolved in that hell, and it showed in everything about them. When they finally arrived, Beck understood why they called it Scorched Peak. The planet looked like a wound in space, all red and black and angry. The main city was built into the side of an active volcano, with buildings carved from obsidian and cooled lava. Dozens of massive ships orbited above it, military vessels that made the steady reach look like a toy. They were directed to land at a military facility that could have swallowed 1,000 cargo ships. Beck walked down her docking ramp in her cleanest work clothes, which still had grease stains and patches. She had not dressed up. If they wanted to meet a human, they would meet a real one. An escort of 6 Dravik's warriors waited for her. They wore full ceremonial armor that looked like it weighed more than Beck's entire ship. Their weapons were massive, designed for creatures with their strength. They said nothing, just gestured for her to follow. Pip had refused to leave the ship. "I will wait here. If you die, I will tell everyone you were brave. If you do not die, I will be very surprised." The Dravik's facility was enormous. Everything was built to their scale, which made Beck feel like a child walking through a giant's castle. The walls showed battle scenes carved into stone, thousands of years of conquest and war. Dravik's history was written in blood, and they were proud of it. They led her through corridors and chambers until they reached a massive door made of black metal. The escort stopped, and one of them spoke for the first time. "War Council waits inside. You will show respect. You will answer questions truthfully. You will not threaten or challenge. If you break these rules, you will die." "Got it," Beck said. "Be polite, tell the truth, don't start fights." The door opened. The chamber beyond was huge, lit by streams of lava flowing through channels in the floor. Heat washed over Beck, enough to make sweat appear instantly on her skin. At the far end, on a raised platform of stone, sat the War Council. 12 Draviks, each one ancient and massive, covered in scars that told stories of battles won. They sat in chairs made from the bones of creatures Beck did not recognize. In the center, elevated above the others, sat the Emperor. He was enormous even by Dravik's standards, his scales so dark they were almost black, his eyes like molten gold. When he breathed, small flames flickered from his nostrils. He had ruled for 300 years, and every inch of him showed that he had earned that rule through violence. Beck walked forward until she stood in the center of the chamber. 12 pairs of eyes watched her. She could feel their judgment, their assessment. They were trying to figure out if she was prey or threat. She stood straight, met the Emperor's gaze, and waited. The silence stretched. Then the Emperor spoke, his voice like an earthquake. "Human, you are Beck Walsh, captain of cargo vessel. Former military, you have caused interesting problems." "I just haul freight," Beck said. "Any problems were accidental. You calmed War Beast. You defeated Raptek's pack. You survived hive infestation. You show no fear of Dravik's. These are not accidents. These are patterns." One of the council members leaned forward. "Explain. How does prey species accomplish such things?" Beck took a breath. This was it. Time to lay it all out. "With respect, council member, humans aren't prey. We never were." The chamber erupted in sounds, low growls, hissing, the scraping of claws on stone. The Emperor raised one hand and silence returned immediately. "Elaborate," the Emperor commanded. Beck organized her thoughts. "You classify species as predator or prey based on physical traits. Claws, fangs, armor, venom. By those standards, humans look like prey. We're small, soft, no natural weapons. But Earth, our homeworld, doesn't care about what you look like. It cares about what you can do." She walked slowly as she talked, and none of the council stopped her. "Humans evolved as hunters. Not ambush hunters like Raptek's. Not power hunters like Dravik's. We were persistence hunters. We tracked prey for days, sometimes weeks, until it collapsed from exhaustion. Nothing on Earth could outrun us when we decided to hunt it. But you have no weapons," another council member said. "We made weapons. Started with rocks and sticks, then spears, arrows, blades. We didn't need claws when we could throw sharp objects from a distance. We didn't need fangs when we could cook meat with fire. Every physical weakness we fixed with tools and intelligence." Beck pointed to the battle scenes on the walls. "Your history shows conquest through strength. Our history shows conquest through adaptation. We spread across every environment on Earth. Deserts, tundras, jungles, mountains. Anywhere life could exist, humans learned to live there. And any predator that threatened us, we eliminated." "Eliminated how?" the Emperor asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. "Systematically. Humans don't fight fair, because fair fights are for species that can afford to lose. When a predator killed humans, we hunted its entire species. We tracked them, studied their behavior, found their weaknesses, and wiped them out. Cave lions, saber-toothed cats, dire wolves, giant bears, all extinct, all killed by small, soft humans with tools and patience." The council was quiet now. Beck continued. "Then we did something stranger. We took some predators and made them into friends. Wolves became dogs. Wildcats became house pets. We domesticated danger because we could, because we understood that controlling predators was better than fighting them forever." She met the Emperor's eyes again. "You asked how prey species accomplishes such things. The answer is we're not prey. We're the species that refuse to be prey. Every evolutionary advantage you have, we countered with tools and tactics. You have armor? We made projectile weapons. You have strength? We made traps and poisons. You have instinct? We made plans and strategies." "So humans claim to be predators," one council member said dismissively. "No," Beck corrected. "We're not predators either. Predators follow instinct. They hunt what they're designed to hunt. They operate within nature's rules. Humans broke those rules. We hunt anything, eat anything, live anywhere. We're adaptable. That's what makes us different. That's what makes us dangerous." The Emperor leaned back in his throne. "You speak of extinct species, of conquered world. Yet you haul cargo. You avoid conflict. You help other species. Explain this contradiction," Beck smiled. "Because we learned. After thousands of years of wars and conquest on Earth, humans figured out something important. Being the strongest doesn't mean you have to prove it constantly. We have weapons that could turn planets into dust. We have technology that could dominate this sector. But we choose not to use it because peace is more profitable than war." "Choice," the Emperor repeated. "You choose restraint." "Yes, we choose to trade instead of conquer. to cooperate instead of dominate. But make no mistake, we remember how to fight. We remember how to hunt. We remember how to eliminate threats. We just prefer not to. Another council member spoke. What a fear. All species feel fear of predators. You show none. We feel fear, Beck said, but we decided a long time ago not to let fear control us. Fear is useful for survival, but it's not useful for progress. So we acknowledge danger, respect it, and deal with it rationally. The council members looked at each other. Beck could see them processing this information, trying to fit humans into their understanding of the universe and failing. Finally, the Emperor spoke again. Humans are a threat to galactic order. You upset predator-prey balance. You give hope to prey species that they can resist. You make predators question their dominance. This is dangerous. I'm one cargo hauler, Beck said. I'm not trying to upset anything. But you do, just by existing as you are, by refusing to act like prey, by showing prey species that strength comes in many forms. The Emperor was quiet for a moment. We could eliminate you. One human is easy to kill. Beck felt her heart rate increase, but she kept her expression calm. You could, but then you'd have to explain to other humans why you killed one of their own, and humans are very good at holding grudges. Is that a threat? It's a fact. Humans have fought wars for hundreds of years over single incidents. We don't forget, we don't forgive easily, and we're very creative about revenge. The Emperor studied her for a long moment. Then, impossibly, he made a sound that might have been laughter. You threaten War Council while standing in our chamber, unarmed, alone. Either you are foolish or you truly do not fear predators. I respect you, Beck said, but respect and fear are different things. I respect that you could kill me easily. But I'm not afraid because I know that would be the stupidest thing you could do politically. More sounds of surprise from the council. No one spoke to the Emperor this way. But Beck was not being arrogant. She was being honest, and somehow that made it acceptable. The Emperor stood. He was massive, easily 15 feet tall, a living weapon of evolution. He walked down from his throne and approached Beck. She had to crane her neck to look at his face. He could kill her with one swipe of his claws. Instead, he offered his hand. You are not prey. You are not predator. You are human. We acknowledge this. Dravik's empire will update galactic records. Humanity will be classified as apex adaptive species, neither above us nor below us, beside us. Beck shook his hand. His grip was gentle, careful not to crush her smaller bones. Thank you, Emperor. That's all we want. Equal treatment. Equal treatment means equal expectations. If humans spread across galaxy, you will follow laws. You will respect territories. You will not upset balance more than you already have. Agreed. The Emperor returned to his throne. This audience is complete. You may leave, Beck Walsh. Scarl has requested assignment to your vessel as permanent observer. Request is granted. He will report on human expansion and ensure cooperation between species. Beck bowed slightly, a sign of respect. Then she turned and walked toward the door. Every step she expected to feel claws in her back. But nothing happened. She reached the door and it opened for her. Outside, Scarl was waiting. You survived. I am pleased. Were you worried? Beck asked. Yes, very worried. But I see you convinced them. What did you say? Beck smiled. The truth. Just the truth. They walked back through the massive facility toward the docking bay. Behind them, in the War Council chamber, 12 ancient predators sat in silence, trying to understand how the galaxy had just changed forever. And on the steady reach, Pip heard Beck returning and made a sound of relief. You are alive. This is unexpected, but welcome. What happens now? Now, Beck said, settling into her pilot chair. We deliver those war beasts, collect our payment, and find the next cargo run. Same as always, but it was not the same. Word of the Emperor's declaration spread across Dravik space within hours. Within days, it reached every corner of the galaxy. Humanity was no longer classified as prey. They were something new, something that did not fit the old categories. And everywhere, species that had always been prey looked at humans and wondered if they could learn to be something else too. 6 months changed everything and nothing at all. Beck still hauled cargo, still flew the same routes, still complained about fuel prices and docking fees. But the galaxy around her had shifted in ways both subtle and obvious. The steady reach approached Crimson Gate Station for what must have been the 20th time this year. Beck guided her ship through the familiar docking sequence while Pip handled communications, and Scarl observed everything with his usual intensity. The war beasts had been delivered months ago, but Scarl never left. He filed reports weekly, documenting every aspect of human behavior, trying to understand what his people had acknowledged but not fully comprehended. The docking controller's voice came through the speakers. "Steady reach, you are cleared for port 12. "Welcome back, Captain Walsh." "Thanks, Control," Beck replied. Same old routine, but it was not the same. Port 12 was a premium berth, usually reserved for diplomatic vessels and military ships. Beck had not requested it. They just gave it to her now. Every time. As they walked down the docking ramp, Beck noticed the usual crowds parting for them. Not out of fear exactly, but something like cautious respect. Prey species no longer cowered when they saw her. Instead, they watched carefully, studying how she moved, how she acted. Some even nodded in greeting. The predator species gave her space too, but for different reasons. They had learned that humans did not follow the old rules, and breaking those rules made outcomes unpredictable. Predators hated unpredictability. "I require supplies," Pip announced, consulting his datapad. "Standard items plus fresh vegetables. I have developed taste for variety." "This is your fault, Beck, you and your earth foods," Beck smiled. "You liked the salad I made last week. Admit it. It was acceptable, not good. Acceptable. I still prefer processed nutrients, but variety is not terrible." That was another change. Pip had started eating different foods, experimenting with his diet. He said it was practical, expanding his nutritional options. Beck knew it was more than that. He was adapting just like humans did. The concept was spreading. They split up at the main corridor. Pip headed for the supply depot with Scarl as escort. Beck had another destination in mind. She made her way to the commercial district, where a new shop had opened 2 months ago. The sign read, "Human Trade Goods," in 4 languages. Inside, a human woman in her 30s was arranging merchandise. Her name was Riley, and she had been one of the first humans to set up a permanent business in Dravik space. "Beck," Riley called out when she entered. "Good to see you. How was the run to the outer sectors?" "Long but profitable." "How's business?" Riley gestured around the shop. "Booming. Turns out everyone wants Earth products now. Coffee is selling like crazy. Aliens love coffee. Also chocolate, spices, and anything that smells interesting. I can barely keep inventory stocked." Beck browsed the shelves. Earth goods were expensive out here, shipped across vast distances, but Riley had found a market. Other species were curious about humanity, and goods were a safe way to explore that curiosity. "I heard about your audience with the Emperor," Riley said, lowering her voice. "Word travels fast. You really told the War Council that humans could hold grudges?" "Something like that. That took guts. Or stupidity. Hard to tell which." Beck picked up a package of instant noodles. "Maybe both. But it worked. They gave us equal status. That's more than most species get. Equal status and constant surveillance. Scarl still following you everywhere?" "He's actually not bad company. Asks a lot of questions, but he's trying to understand. Better than assuming we're a threat and acting on it." Riley leaned on her counter. "You know there are 12 more humans in this sector now? All of them came after your meeting with the Emperor. They figure if Beck Walsh can haul cargo and survive predator politics, maybe they can make it out here too. You started something? I just wanted to do my job. Well, your job became a statement, whether you meant it to or not. Come on, I'll buy you lunch. There's a new place that opened up. Human run. Real Earth cooking." They left the shop and walked through the station. More changes were visible now. A human mechanic had set up a repair bay. A human doctor had opened a medical clinic that treated all species. Small things, but they added up. Humans were spreading, not through conquest or force, but through simple presence. The restaurant was small but clean, with actual tables and chairs sized for humans. The owner, a man named Gene who used to work on colony ships, greeted them warmly. "Captain Walsh, I heard you were docking today. Sit anywhere. Today's special is beef stew, made with real Earth beef from the hydroponics colony on New Denver." Beck sat down feeling oddly emotional. Real Earth food, cooked by humans, served in a place designed for human comfort. 6 months ago, none of this existed in Dravik space. They ordered, and while they waited, Beck noticed Scarl and Pip entering the restaurant. Scarl had to duck through the doorway, and the furniture was comically small for him, but he found a reinforced chair and sat carefully. "Pip wanted to try human food," Scarl explained. I am curious also. Your species' relationship with food is unusual. Jean brought out plates of stew, the meat cooked rare for Beck, more well done for Riley, and a vegetable-heavy version for Pip. The smell filled the small restaurant. Beck cut into her meat. Blood pooled at the bottom of the bowl, mixing with the gravy. She remembered the first time Scarl had seen her eat rare meat, how confused and alarmed he had been. Now he just watched with scientific interest. This is good, Pip admitted after trying the vegetables. Complex flavors. Multiple textures. I understand now why you eat this way. Scarl tried a small piece of meat, chewing carefully. Protein content is high. Preparation method enhances taste, efficient. He paused. But I do not understand blood. Why do humans prefer meat with blood? Beck swallowed her bite. It's not really blood by the time it reaches the plate. It's myoglobin, protein from muscle tissue, but it looks like blood, and I guess humans are just used to it. We've been butchering meat for thousands of years. Blood is just part of the process. Other species see blood and think danger, think injury, think death. We see it and think dinner. Riley laughed. That's humanity in a nutshell. We took everything that scares other species and made it mundane. Blood, predators, violence, death. All just facts of life. It is terrifying, Scarl said quietly. Species that cannot be scared by normal things are species that have seen much worse. What did humans survive on Earth that made blood seem ordinary? Beck thought about that while she ate. Earth's history was violent. Humans had survived ice ages, plagues, predators, wars with each other. They had lived through scenarios that would have ended most species. And somehow they had come through it all with a shrug and a determination to keep going. Everything, Beck said finally. We survived everything. So nothing seems that scary anymore. After lunch, they returned to the steady reach to load new cargo. This time the job was simple. Medical supplies to a frontier colony. But as Beck was checking the manifest, a message came through on the priority channel. It was from Earth, from the Terran Trade Authority. Beck opened it and Riley read over her shoulder. The message was brief but significant. Earth was establishing official diplomatic relations with the Dravix Empire. Trade agreements were being negotiated. Cultural exchange programs were being planned. And they wanted experienced human captains to serve as advisors. They're asking you to help, Riley said. You started this. Now they want you to help finish it. Beck stared at the message. She could refuse. She could keep hauling cargo, stay out of politics, live the quiet life she preferred. But she thought about the human shops opening across the station, the prey species watching her, learning that weakness was not destiny, the predator species learning that strength came in many forms. She thought about Scarl, who had gone from seeing humans as confusing prey to seeing them as equals worth understanding. She thought about Pip, who no longer hid under his console when danger appeared. Small changes, but changes that mattered. I'll think about it, Beck said, which everyone knew meant yes. That evening, Beck stood in the observation deck with Scarl watching the stars. Crimson Gate Station rotated slowly against the black, its lights marking civilization in the void. Question, Scarl said. 6 months ago I asked what makes humans dangerous. You said adaptability. I have observed this. You adapt to any situation, but I think there is more. What truly makes humans dangerous is that you change everything around you without trying. You do not conquer. You simply exist in a way that makes others question their own existence. Beck nodded slowly. Maybe. We don't try to change things. We just live according to our nature. If that changes the galaxy, well, that's on the galaxy for being rigid. Dravix Empire has existed for 5,000 years unchanged. Same hierarchy, same rules, same order. Then one human cargo hauler eats bloody meat in front of customs officer, and suddenly everything is uncertain. You are chaos factor. Unpredictable variable. This is why species fear you. Do you fear us? Scarl was quiet for a long moment. No, I respect you. Respect is better than fear. Fear makes enemies. Respect makes allies. Good answer. They stood in comfortable silence, watching ships come and go from the station. Somewhere in the cargo bay, the empty containment unit sat waiting for the next job. Somewhere in the crew quarters, Pip was trying a new type of tea that Riley had recommended. Everything was normal. Everything had changed. Beck's wrist computer chimed with another message. This one was from a prey species colony, requesting human security advisors. They wanted to learn how to defend themselves, not through submission or hiding, but through human methods. through tools and tactics and refusing to accept their place in the food chain. The requests were coming in daily now. Humans had not conquered anyone, had not forced anyone to change. They had simply demonstrated that the old rules were optional. And that demonstration was revolution enough. "What will you do?" Scarl asked, seeing her reading the message. Beck thought about it. She thought about Earth, where humans had climbed from prey species to apex predators through nothing but stubbornness and intelligence. She thought about the galaxy, locked in its predator-prey dynamic for millions of years. She thought about what could happen if other species learned that they could choose their own path. "I'm going to do my job," Beck said. "Haul cargo. Make deliveries. Help people when they need it, same as always. But now your job is larger than cargo. You are symbol. You are proof that things can change. Then I guess I better not mess it up." Beck finished her shift and headed to her quarters. Tomorrow would bring another cargo run, another station, another opportunity to just exist as herself. That was all she had ever done. Be human, eat her lunch, do her work, refuse to pretend she was something she was not. The next morning, Beck prepared for departure. The medical supplies were loaded and secured. Pip had finished his pre-flight checks. Scarl had filed his weekly report to Dravik's command. Everything was ready. As Beck sat in her pilot chair, she pulled out her breakfast. A sandwich with tomato sauce that looked red enough to be alarming. She took a bite and started the undocking sequence. A young Quillen dock worker, barely old enough to work, watched through the window as the Steady Reach prepared to leave. He saw the human captain eating something that looked like blood, saw her casual confidence, saw the way she carried herself without fear. The young Quillen had spent his whole life being told he was prey, told to be quiet, submissive, grateful for whatever scraps predators allowed him. But watching this human, he wondered if maybe that was not the only way to live. He went back to work, but something had changed in his mind. A small seed of possibility had been planted. Across the galaxy, in 1,000 stations and colonies and worlds, similar moments were happening. Humans appeared, did their jobs, acted like equals regardless of who told them otherwise. And everywhere they went, the old certainty crumbled just a little bit more. Beck engaged the engines. The Steady Reach pulled away from Crimson Gate Station and accelerated into open space. Stars stretched around them, endless and bright. "Course set for the Outer Rim colonies," Pip announced. "Travel time, 4 days. Cargo, medical supplies, and hope." "Hope is not cargo," Scarl said. "With humans, everything is cargo. They carry change wherever they go. Whether they mean to or not." Beck smiled and bit into her sandwich. The sauce dripped down like blood and she wiped it away without thought. Just another meal. Just another day. Just another human being human, and somehow that was enough to change the galaxy. The Steady Reach flew on into the black, carrying its captain, its crew, and the simple revolutionary truth that strength came in many forms. That prey and predator were choices, not destinies. That the food chain was something humans had climbed to the top of, and then decided to dismantle entirely. Behind them, the galaxy slowly, reluctantly began to understand. Ahead of them, the stars waited, indifferent and eternal. And Beck Walsh, cargo hauler and accidental revolutionary, flew toward them with a bloody sandwich in one hand and the future in the other, completely unaware of how much she had changed, and completely unconcerned with anything except making her next delivery on time. Because that was what humans did. They adapted. They persisted. They refused to quit. And they always made it look easy.